Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got ourselves a ball club, the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell, give 'em a hand, and let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. Come on and meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the Mets of New York town, of New York town.
How's it going, Mets and baseball fans? Yes, we are back for not one but two live streams today. This being the second, as I originally had scheduled up until we saw the Luis Rojas news earlier today at the time of being live here, or if you're watching this on replay. So if you guys did not check out the live stream on Luis Rojas' departure from the New York Mets as manager, please make sure you do, guys. I will have everything is linked. It's pinned on my channel currently, but definitely check it out. But I know we got a lot of recurring viewers, and we have a lot that we need to discuss today regardless, and that is regarding what exactly is next for the New York Mets. And with Luis Rojas now being gone as manager for the Mets, that makes things a lot easier in my mind to have these discussions, knowing that we've already taken care of one of the bigger hurdles heading into the offseason. That was actually parting ways with them. So we have a lot that we're going to be breaking down, as you see listed here. So we're going to go down step by step, as I mentioned before, and really just our first full offseason live stream, besides the Rojas one, where we can have our Q&A thoughts, share our own thoughts and impressions, and really break down the latest news that's been happening. Because funny enough, as soon as the offseason has begun today for the Mets, there's already been more comments that are coming out on the potential hires of, I don't know, a Theo Epstein, a Billy Beane, a Stearns from the Brewers, along with some managerial options, and of course, roster moves, which would be the last piece here after getting who are you going to have in president baseball operations in, who are you going to have as GM, who are you going to have as manager. Once you get all that fun stuff done, then you can focus on, okay, what are you going to do to your roster? But before we go any further, guys, I want to say thank you all so much for being here. Matthew with the $10 donation. My goodness gracious. Shout out to Matthew, jumps in and says, you know what, you're getting a donation off the bat. Thank you so much, Matt. I hope you're doing well, buddy. I haven't seen you in a little bit now, so I hope all is well on your side. Happy to have you in here, and you already know how the offseason goes, so I'm sure you're looking forward to that just as much as I am. But thank you again for the donation. Let's get some love and hype in the chat for my man, Matthew. I see Gerald, pardon me, great member on the channel. Ivan, Brandon, Jose, and I apologize if I'm coughing throughout the stream, guys. I've been dealing just with post-nasal drip this past week, so I can't help it. You know what? You got to deal with it. You're going to deal with it because you love me, hopefully. We see Anthony. How's it going? Jack, Jamal, let's see, Jacob, John, all you guys. Christopher, thank you all so much for everybody chiming in. Like I said, guys, we have a lot, and I mean a lot, that we need to break down. And everyone's been asking me, people have been asking me literally for the past couple of months now, who are the Mets going to hire? Who's their next president? Who is this? Who's that? Okay, I have a good idea as to people that the Mets are interested in, but who they actually land is a completely different story. So it's important that we kind of go one by one on the latest news here that's been reported over the past 24 to 48 hours regarding the president of baseball operations, who could potentially be that spot for the Mets. So that's what we'll be getting into first. Along with that, we will then get into hiring a GM, who could be a potential fit after you hire a president of baseball operations, with the assumption that whoever comes in as president of baseball ops does in fact only be president of baseball ops, and they still want a GM hire. I feel reluctant to suggest that the Mets, whoever they hire, is going to be both GM and president of baseball ops. So you're going to need two of these, right? So who are they going to pick for that spot then? Are there any names out there that could be enticing right now? Then let's also get into potential managerial fits. We touched on it in our Rojas stream, but we can touch on it further because I know it's still a hot discussion, as it literally just happened a couple hours ago at the time of being live here. And of course, we'll briefly touch on some potential roster moves. I'll share, kind of my stances on the matter, what I think is realistic right now. I don't want to spoil too much, however, because, that's what the bulk of the offseason content is going to be. And we have a huge collab that's going to be coming on the channel at some point this week, hopefully, regarding someone I think a lot of you guys in the Mets community know by now, regarding exactly the Mets outlook when it comes to their roster configuration. But thank you all again to everybody chiming in. Christopher, Camo, John, Ivan, thank you guys. I'm going to see some of your questions. I'm going to answer some of your questions, and then I'm going to start to deep dive really number one on the list here for the next steps from the Mets as they enter the offseason. But again, guys, just chiming in, make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Help us get to 100 likes. You know the drill by now. Smash those buttons. You guys always know that I appreciate it, and thank you so much in advance. Who would be top choice as potential GM options and managers? Yeah, Mike, we're going to be breaking them down kind of one by one. What's realistic? What's been reported? How realistic is those reports? And all those kind of things in a nutshell. I'm excited to get into this because these kind of conversations I thoroughly enjoy. It's something that I'm very much excited to be doing in the offseason a lot. I feel like we don't get to do it nearly as much during the season, just because during the season, there could be literally nothing to talk about until offseason hits, when that changes need to be made because the team still won't make changes. So we have a lot to break down. I'm looking forward to it, no less. What's up, Robert? How's it going? I think President of Baseball Operations is going to be someone who we won't expect no one being. Oh, see, that's a bold pick by John, and I don't think that's too outlandish. And what's up, Jay Bros? Happy to have you here too, my man. I don't think that's too outlandish because if the Mets are going to operate in any way, shape, or form to which how they did last offseason, again, I don't think they will too much because of how different the front office is going to be. But in the scenario that they do, one thing that was notable with the Mets was really making not just hires, but trades and kind of, unexpected. A lot of the moves the Mets made last offseason were things that went under the radar, things that really were not picked up by the press or anything like that until it was actually reported and it actually happened. So could the Mets go down that lane? Yes, I think a part of me almost feels like that lane is more realistic. Not so much with president of baseball operations, because we have reports to fairly contradict that notion that I'll be getting into shortly, but also what happens with GM and potentially manager. I think those are the picks where, especially GM, where it really could be someone that, maybe you weren't thinking about too much because we've been so ingrained, and I've been thinking this entire time, who's going to be the next president of baseball operations, right? Well, before we get there, we also have to remember that, there's a layout, there's a plan from Sandy right now and Steve Cohen, and they have a lot of work that they have to get to, but no less, they're going to get to where they want to be, and I'm excited for it. Asia with Deja, great member on the channel. Thank you so much for being here. Zack Scott. Okay, let's talk about Zack Scott right now. I think that's a fine thing to talk about before we get into this entire list. And I realize that I have it higher of president of baseball. I don't have the other O here like Pobo. I just have Pob, but don't mind it. The intent is that it should say higher president of baseball operations. You guys understand the list here. But talking about Zack Scott for a second, I am almost completely certain that Zack Scott has already been done with the New York Mets. One, he doesn't still have his court date. I believe not until October 7th. Don't quote me. I know it's the first week of October. Sanderson has made noted in his presser that he had the other day prior to the season ending that, yeah, this looks like it is, in fact, the end of things. Pardon me, not the end. He said that there really hasn't been too much contact between Zack Scott, if at all, with the Mets since this whole ordeal has taken place. So in my mind, that's pretty telling. Zack Scott will not be GM into the New York Mets next year, and I'll be surprised if he's even in the organization, to be honest with you. I really think it's going to come down to who the front office hires are, but yeah, I think it's a fair bet to say at this point in time that Zack Scott is done as the acting GM of the New York Mets. And while I didn't hate Zack Scott at all, there was definitely qualities of him I thoroughly enjoyed. things need to change. A lot needs to change. And this was a guy that came in who wasn't even the original pick for the Mets when it came to actually being a GM. Like, he wasn't their number one pick. Like, same thing with Jared Porter. The Mets wanted to make a hire in president baseball operations before they even got to Jared Porter. So, like, everything went wrong for the Mets, not just throughout the season, but in the offseason last year. So trust me, we're gonna get into it all right now, though, folks. But again, thank you all so much, everybody chiming in. We're about to pivot here shortly into number one that I have on the list here. Asia, am I watching football? I have been. My Steelers haven't been doing well right now. Their offense is abysmal. I don't know what to tell you. It is what it is. I'm not worried about my Steelers right now, though. I'm worried about talking about my Mets. So that's where I'm at. Hey, Tyler, what are your thoughts on the Mets looking at Bob Melvin? I have a lot of thoughts on Bob Melvin. I've talked about it a lot, and we've even done a video on the channel. So if you want to check that out, I highly suggest you do, Bob Melvin and Billy Bean. But we're going to expand on it further today for you guys. And Sandy, great member on the channel. What's up, Ori? How are you? I'm doing great, buddy. Hope you're doing well. I'm so sorry. Jesus. Your dog was ran over. I'm so sorry to hear that. I might be sounding like a fool to ask if he made it or she made it. But with the assumption that you didn't, regardless, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's heartbreaking. Seriously, that's so terrible to hear. Nothing worse than a man's best friend getting hurt. It really, I'm so sorry to hear that, buddy. I appreciate you being here, no less. I do. Do you think Steve will be more involved than last year? Yes. I don't think it's based out of anger, though. I think it's based off of evaluating and understanding his role as an owner and really getting down the foundation of what the expectations were and now what they are. And did he meet them? Did he not meet them? What the team, I should say, in this season. It was an evaluation year, and he has a lot to learn from. And I do expect him to be more active in decision-making for the Mets to a certain extent. Yes. Chris, what's up, my man? Met me at Boston. Oh, awesome, buddy. Yes. It was beyond humbling to have numerous people, including yourself, coming up to me when we were in Boston for the 7-line trip. That was so much fun. My goodness. I wish I was back there. I cannot get over how awesome that Boston trip was. But yes, it was great meeting you, Chris. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. I really appreciate that. And thank you for your continued support. What's up, Mad Mike? How's it going, buddy? All right. Oh, Harold Reynolds. What? Were you talking about the same Harold Reynolds? That's your sleeper pick, the Harold Reynolds, the MLB Network analyst, Harold Reynolds? Interesting. Okay, all right. We're going to be taking plenty of questions, guys. Don't worry. I'll be going back and forth with the chat the entire time. But Dave, what's up? Great friend and subscriber on the channel. Hope you're doing well, Dave. Thank you for being here, buddy. I'm so sorry to hear again about that insanity. Hearing this, yeah, exactly. Get your mind off things again. My condolences once more to you, buddy. I hope this organization gets the changes it needs for a winning season. You and I both, and we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there together as a community. So let's get into it now, folks. Okay, President Baseball Operations. We have talked about Pobo, or just how I have it typed on the screen, Pob, because I apparently don't know, the difference clearly, but. There's three names that have been looming out there for easily a while. Theo Epstein has been connected to the Mets since Steve Cohen first became owner last offseason. I remember like it was yesterday. And it almost felt like when Theo was stepping down from president as the Cubs, that it was almost a match made in heaven. Like, oh, Theo's stepping down for the purpose to go to the Mets. Well, no, that didn't happen. Theo works for Rob Manfred. He works in the front office for the MLB, and Theo's a very interesting factor in everything because he's a guy that has won it all in his career. He has 3 World Series championships under his belt, twice with the Boston Red Sox and once with the Chicago Cubs, helping both those respective clubs reach, literally like 100-year-long droughts to actually get back to the promised land. And Theo's still relatively young in his 50s now. And what he's done throughout his career is nothing short of a Hall of Fame resume. But because he's reached all these peaks in his career, what necessarily gives him the incentive to come to the Mets other than one, something that he's been openly asking for that we've discussed on the channel, that would be a minority stake in ownership. That's something that he wanted from the Cubs that apparently there was a stalemate. Rumor has it, at least, that led that there being a departure between Theo and his relationship with the Cubs before he then went on to being hired by Manfred. But Theo, He wants a minority stake in ownership, and he wants full control, is what all the reports have indicated. But for a guy who's done so much to historic franchises in the MLB, is the Mets, between a big payday that Steve would, of course, give, being the richest owner of baseball from an individual perspective, would his money be enough single-handedly to entice Theo? Would the potential relationships that he's had with a Zack Scott, that very well could be on his way out still for the Mets, with Jared Porter, is that going to have a positive, negative impact, if at all, in this decision making? Well, I would like to direct everyone here, guys. And again, thank you for the likes. Help us get a 50. We're only 15 away, you beauties. I'm going to take a quick transition here, folks. I want you to take a look at this article with me, because this was reported yesterday, and I decided there's no reason to make a video. Let's talk about it in the live stream, because this is a crucial part of the topic that's being had right here, folks. And this is more of the same. If you guys have been following along the channel, you're well aware of this by now, but here we go. Mets to contact Theo Epstein, plan to ask permission about Billy Beane and David Stearns. And this is according to Mark Polishuk. I might be butchering his name. I apologize. It was originally reported through John Heyman through Twitter. The reason why I didn't make an individual video on this is I wanted this to be part of off-season discussions and live stream. So getting into it now, this says the following, and I quote: "The Mets' search for a new president of baseball ops will lead to a chat with Theo Epstein, as MLB Network's John Heyman reports." This was yesterday, that the Mets are planning to get in touch with Epstein soon. Now, what is defined as soon? I would imagine that's as soon as this week. And the reason why I say that is when you get rid of Luis Rojas, as soon as the Mets did, you need to make sure that whatever manager you're going to hire next, that your president of baseball operations and or new GM has a say in this. By no means do I want Sandy Alderson, the man who should not be involved in day-to-day baseball operations, to be the one hiring a new manager. It would make zero sense, because why would he bring in a new manager before you even bring in a new front office? Then you literally, it would be a complete conflict of interest in my mind. So this is a smart route. I hope the Mets go down it, and I do expect them to make these interviews happen very soon. And remarks came from Billy Beane today that I discussed in my Luis Rojas live stream that I will be attending to as well. But they're awfully enticing because, in a nutshell, Billy Beane was asked about the whole thing, and he openly said today he never denied it. Let me put it that way. He never gave a yes or a no answer, but from how the response was very enticing for someone like myself that's a heavy advocate for Billy Beane as the next potential president of the Mets, and that's someone that will very much be watching the movie Moneyball tonight for no apparent reason whatsoever, if you catch my drift. But going further in this report from MLB Trade Rumors, it is that Athletics Executive VP Billy Beane and Brewers President Baseball Ops David Stearns. We're going to get into David Stearns for a good portion of this upcoming discussion, because I have a lot to say about David Stearns, and he's someone that I haven't done an individual video on the channel yet, so wait for that. Are also on the Mets wish list, as Heyman notes that New York intends to ask the A's and Brewers for permission to speak with the two executives once Oakland's season is over and once Milwaukee's postseason is complete. Now, this is very exciting for me for numerous reasons. So let's get into why is it enticing for the Mets to go down the Theo Epstein route, okay? And how realistic is it? I think those are two things that need to be addressed, because there's a common misconception, I feel like, with this to a certain degree. Theo Epstein, as I mentioned already, is somewhat of a wild card, mainly based on what he has done in his career to this point. This is a man that has won everything humanly possible that you could do, and he's done it in great fashion. And yes, I know that necessarily he hasn't the organizations, there has been some issues with them for sure, but winning World Series, any of those routes is absolutely fantastic in my mind. And my biggest concern with Theo Epstein is, more than anything, in a scenario where it comes to the Mets, as silly as this may sound, and hear me out, folks, everybody in the chat or watching this on replay, is his commitment. What is his drive here? How much focus is he going to have versus the likes of a Billy Beane, who has been literally success deprived his entire career as someone in upper management of the Oakland A's? They are polar opposites. Billy Beane, who, yes, I know, was given the opportunity to be the GM on a multi-million-dollar deal for the Red Sox back in the early 2000s, denied that, said he wanted to stay with the A's at the time to really work with them and try to make the most, even them being balling on a budget. And we all know that's how Theo Epstein's rise to fame started. If it wasn't for Billy Beane denying the GM job in Boston years ago, Theo Epstein and the Red Sox would have never happened. So it's kind of crazy how this all connects one way or another. But my point is that Billy Beane, to me, is going to have a drive in a scenario where he would be acquired by the Mets that might simply be completely outmatched versus someone like Theo Epstein because of the fact that Billy's never won anything. Billy hasn't had the luxury to win anything. And if you're wondering, how does that even make sense? Billy Beane, he's been a GM and VP of President Baseball Operations for a bit now, and it's his fault that the A's don't have success, right? Well, no, you're wrong. You're an idiot. Respectfully, you simply are not paying attention. If you think that Billy Beane has been a bad executive or overhyped one, you don't know the story about Billy Beane. What this man has done with literally pennies on the dollar of what he's working with, and an MLB organization like the Oakland A's completely straps year in and year out because of the ownership in front of him, not allowing him to do anything. If you're still pinning that on him, then you're simply not following along with what actually is happening here. Billy Beane has made the absolute most of every opportunity given to him with the Oakland A's organization. And what is also important to look at is he's kind of getting, at this point, according to reports, is really getting fed up. Last offseason, if you guys don't know, Marcus Semien, who, as we know, is the best hitting second baseman in baseball history this year with home runs with 45, which is just insane. But he still views himself as a shortstop. Besides the point, Billy Beane did not want to get rid of Marcus Semien last offseason. But A's ownership did not allow him to give him a new contract. They simply did not allow it. They let Marcus Semien hit free agency without Billy Beane being okay with it. And that's something that did not resonate well with Billy. And I think that this is something that goes down and down. It's a snowball effect because this has been happening for years now for Billy Beane. So the question is now the time for someone like Billy, who has been through so much in the same organization, who, while he is a diehard in the West Coast, and yes, I know he denied a GM job in Boston all those years ago, is now the time for him at the age of 59 to be driven and get over that hump and go to an organization where you don't just have money to work with, you have the biggest payroll in baseball, more than likely. That is what the Mets will be pushing for this offseason. All reasons are to believe the Mets can very well be pushing north of $300 million in payroll while being okay. Going over the luxury tax, blowing right through it, but being financially okay, having nothing significant to worry about, being able to eat contracts when you need to eat contracts, and being able to make the right decisions without acting like a drunken sailor. Imagine what Billy Beane can do with a payroll to that degree. And I think that's something that a lot of people, when you think of Billy Beane, they automatically down him for his lack of success with an organization when he's had nothing to work with. Why do you think the A's and the Rays are so good? It's because they're so damn smart. They have some of the best analytics groups in all of baseball, but no, they haven't gone over the hump. No shit, they haven't gone over the hump, because analytics can only take you so far if you don't have at least some type of payroll, a quarter of the payroll to back it up. The Tampa Bay Rays went on a miraculous short 2020 season run, but still fell short to the largest payroll in baseball, that being the LA Dodgers. What is the LA Dodgers system when it comes to their management and their operations? They have a fantastic analytics group. So they have the Rays mentality. They have the A's mentality, but they also have the money to work with. It's the best of both worlds. It's what I say with anything else in life when it comes to analytics. You can't have one over the other. You can't have the eye test completely overpowering analytics. I think that's too much of an old school approach. It's proven that. I think analytics, you can't go too analytics in with your day-to-day operations, especially with your lineup. I think that's too much. But you need to balance the both, not just between your performance on the field with how you evaluate your players, but ultimately how you configure your roster overall. This is something that Billy Beane has been notorious for throughout his career. So now let's get into the comments here, folks, on Billy Beane and why exactly he would be a great fit for the Mets and why he should be a lot more enticing to you than maybe what the eye originally told you. And again, we have to see what happens. I can be talking about Theo Epstein, Billy Beane, David Stearns all day. These are all three amazing, and I truly mean amazing options for the Mets if they can land either of them. But does that mean, is it a guarantee that they're going to land any of these guys? No, it's not. Nothing in life is a guarantee. And the Mets need to make sure that they can at least get to talk to them. That's why it says in the report that we just announced here, if you're just chiming in, the Mets over the past 24 hours are, fully expected to be talking with Theo Epstein soon, along with asking for permission from the Brewers again for David Stearns. And David Stearns, so we're going to get to him in a second, so I'm going to push him away. David Stearns, president of baseball operations for the Brewers, right? Then you have Billy Beane, A's. You need permission to talk to these guys. What did the Mets not get at all last offseason? They got zero permission to talk to anyone. And that's where the Mets already had a problem. I said this in my Sandy Alderson video that basically no one watched because everyone was upset that Sandy was staying as president. I understand, but at least watch the damn thing before you're going to get mad at me. That's all I'm asking. The point here is that when the Mets try to make these moves, when they try to make a president of baseball operations hire happen last offseason, it was never available to them. All their picks from picks probably 1 to 5 were already out of the picture because all the teams that have analytically driven guys, great young minds, higher execs in their front office, they didn't want to do anything. They didn't want to part ways with them, let alone to the Mets. Talking about an intimidation tactic, Steve Cohen comes in, balling on a budget, cocky as ever, rightfully so, comes in, and teams don't want to abide by that. They're like, oh, okay, the Mets are going to come in and actually act like a big market team right now. Why should I give them the privilege to talk to my young, promising executive? No, I'm not going to do that. Hopefully things have changed now because a lot has changed over the course of the year. But now with me kind of calming down and not ranting as much because I've had this built in for a while now. And I feel like not nearly enough people are hearing this. And thank you all so much, everybody in the chat. Smash that like and subscribe button if you're enjoying this breakdown on the offseason live stream of what is next for the New York Mets. I want to get into once more the comments from Billy Beane. Exactly. That's exactly what I want to get into, folks. So as we talked about briefly in the Rojas live stream, we're going to do it once again. Because this is important if you guys haven't seen this already. And again, shout out all you guys that are just chiming in. Thank you so much for being here. Crazy offseason for the Mets. Rest assured, every single thing you need to know about the offseason, I will be covering it. I literally promise you that. Okay, let's get through my tweets for a second. Okay, first comment, and I addressed this earlier, and I'm going to address it again. Billy Beane on the Mets speculation. This came out today. Kind of funny. Comes out the day that is the Mets offseason beginning, correct? Right? Billy Beane on the Mets speculation. Didn't want to lend credibility to it, he said. Again, it's all press reports. Says it's a compliment to organization when he forces a GM for the A's. Bob Melvin, who's the manager of the A's, or others are mentioned like this, didn't confirm nor deny. There is a report from John Shea. This is a national baseball writer for San Francisco Chronicle. Check him out on Twitter if you'd like to see more on this. There is a further comment here I want to add. Hold on one second, folks. I'm almost certain there was another remark. Just give me one. Where is it? Now it's gonna piss me off if I can't find it. Hold on. Maybe it's in the quotes. Okay, see, this was continued from Matt Kawahara, who's a A's beat writer for the San Francisco Chronicle. Continued the following on Beane regarding the Mets reports. There's no need to really respond to those. I'd be here all day, I think. That is what Billy Beane's first remark was after the fact. Asked if Mets have requested to interview him. Listen to this. I wouldn't even know. But what? What do you mean you wouldn't know? What are you saying? What does that even mean? Billy, stop lying, Billy. I wouldn't even know. Again, for me to be worried about this is really to lend credibility to it. It's all just press reports. This sounds like to me a guy that clearly did not deny nor confirm things. Something tells me that there is in fact a connection. And this was originally reported through Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic. That's why we did the Billy Beane video on the channel here on why this could happen. Because Ken Rosenthal over the past month came out with a piece suggesting, it was a quote unquote suggestion, right? That Billy Beane and Bob Melvin is the manager of the A's. Billy Beane is vice president of the baseball operations for the A's, could come over in a package deal trade to the New York Mets. Something that's rare. That doesn't happen often where you trade front office guys and managers, but it's possible. And Ken Rosenthal, while like any other reporter, he hasn't been accurate at anything. He's one of the most reputable MLB reporters out there. And the likelihood for him to throw out something of a suggestion without any substance is slim to none. So to see there's these remarks from Billy Beane today, not denying whatsoever if the Mets have even reached out to him or anything, is telling to me that this is only the beginning of a potential fit for Billy Beane and the A's with the Mets. Now, granted, do I think the Mets are only going to zone in on Billy Beane? No. reports that we've already talked about on the channel in the live stream today indicate that, yes, the Mets are going to be going after Theo Epstein. They're going to talk to him, and they're going to hopefully get an interview with Billy Beane and David Stearns. So with that being said, folks, that's really all you need to know on the Billy Beane front right now. In a nutshell, it looks like it's just beginning. And that's something that I'm awfully enticed by. I'm really excited by. I don't know what your stances are on it, and it's perfectly fine if you're one way or the other. And we're halfway to 100 likes, folks. So continue to smash that like and subscribe on, folks. Thomas, what's up? You said the Mets reached out to Epstein today. What makes you say they reached out to them today? All I've seen are reports that indicate that they would be reaching out to him soon. Again, thank you for being here, Thomas. I see other great members here, so I'm going to address them real quick. William, what's up, my man? Thank you so much for chiming in, buddy. Appreciate you. I see a lot of you guys chiming in. And, yeah, a lot of funny comments, too. But, okay, let's talk now, because we talked about Billy Beane, right? He's a beauty. I would love him in the Mets organization. I think a lot of you guys would, too. You're not giving the A's compensation for Beane? Sorry. Well, Anthony, the beauty of it is you don't have to worry about it. So, Steve Cohen is the one giving up the compensation, and that's not going to hurt anything for the Mets. That's why I'm not bothered by it whatsoever. Talking about David Stearns. David Stearns is really, 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 really interesting. David Stearns, if you guys don't know, grew up a diehard New York Mets fan. Started out his career as a scout in the Mets organization. What has he done since then? Well, David Stearns went on to work in the front office for the Houston Astros, helping them build their core to what they've had now, what has been the World Series success. Cheating aside, that's separate from the point. Then he went on to the Milwaukee Brewers and is currently the president of baseball operations for a Brewers team that is one of the best teams in all of baseball, one of the best teams in the NL, has a star-studded rotation with a lot of great young talent with also veteran leadership. That's a great balance. And David Stearns was someone the Mets heavily advocated for last offseason, but as I said already, we're not able to get an interview done for him because the Brewers said no, their ownership. Now here we are, fast forwarding a year with everything that could have went wrong for the Mets. You have David Stearns, who isn't just a diehard Mets fan, who didn't start his career with the Mets being a New York native. He's 36 years old, folks. He's 36 years old with an amazing resume, a Harvard grad, a Columbia grad, and he's a diehard Mets fan. And if the Mets go back to circling back to David Stearns, which is what the reports will indicate. Thomas, Steve says hello. Thomas, stop the cap. Thomas, stop. Are you in that meeting right now? Or did you ask him to say hello to me? If he did, thank you. I appreciate that. Thomas, did you answer about, I just want to cut off quick. I do know who you talked to today. Mets reach out to Epstein today. Let me know if that's accurate, though. Thomas, I know you talked to Steve Cohen. If you guys don't know, Thomas works at Citi Field, and he got to talk to Steve Cohen and everyone in the Mets organization today to kind of wrap up the season. So I want to know his thoughts there. But going back to David Stearns for a second. David, if he goes up to Brewers management in a scenario where they don't allow the Mets to talk to him again, and he says, Brewers ownership, I should say, and he said, hey, this is really important to me. Grew up a diehard Mets fan. I would love to actually make this happen. You'd have to think the Brewers would abide by his wishes. And even in this slight scenario where Brewers ownership would still say, no, not happening, we need you here, David only has 1 year left on his contract, so he can be bold should he wish. Again, there's no correlation to indicate that David Stearns definitely wants that job for the Mets, but just everything, you're just pointing to things, you're putting everything together between his connection as a diehard fan and starting now as a scout in the Mets organization and the Mets' open willingness to want to hire him. If he goes in, he has 1 year left on his contract, so he can say, hey, I just want to extend with you guys. So he does have say here. He does have pull. And for everything that David Stearns has done at the young age at 36, I think it's awfully impressive enough. And I would be very much in favor of that scenario. I think if you're talking about a guy that can have a long-term commitment in tippity top of the Mets front office, it starts and ends with David Stearns. He in a lot of ways could be what Theo Epstein was for the Red Sox, right? A young, great-minded executive. That's where I see certain similarities with David. He literally is a baby face. This guy's so young. I love it. I'm so much in favor of any of these three as potentially being a hire for sure. But if there's one guy where you're talking about longevity that I think can give the Mets the most longevity, it's David Stearns. Then between the other two, I would be more than happy with either Billy Beane or Theo Epstein. So in a nutshell, folks, if you're trying to kind of understand what is the status on the Mets president baseball operations search, that is it. They plan to talk to Theo Epstein. It might have been today. I was at a meeting from 12 to 5:45, talked to them for about 3 hours. That's awesome, Thomas. But yes, so Theo Epstein, looks like those discussions will be happening, and same can be said with the likes of David Stearns, Billy Beane, as long as they actually get allowance to talk to them through the ownership of those respective clubs and the Oakland A's and the Milwaukee Brewers. So there really isn't anything to touch on for president baseball operations. Those are the three. There's really no one else out there that you can indicate could potentially be the next president. Those are the only three. It's of a short list. And all these rumors that have been flying high seem to be holding true to this point, which is something that really wasn't the case last year for the Mets when it came to all these reports that were going left and right. Could it be this? Could it be that? And then it ends up being something completely false or completely different. No, what is being reported right now is directly in line with what the Mets are doing and what their search is for president baseball operations. And for me personally, that makes me damn excited. I don't know about you guys, but that for me, that gets me going. I am beyond amped for that. So now let's get into two. Okay, now let's get into GM. GM is a really, really tricky one. And I want to know everyone's thoughts in the chat right now, folks, on a potential GM that you would like personally, because it's really hard to garner what a GM could be for the Mets. Because like anything else, it goes directly in hand with who your next president of baseball operations is going to be, especially in a scenario where, say, it is a David Stearns. Like, are we talking about potentially targeting people from, again, more analytically driven clubs, like still the Brewers, still the Rays, the A's? I don't see their GM going anywhere, but the GM is a really big wild card for me, and that's something that I wish I had more notes on for you guys because I don't. And I'm also curious as to, depending on who the Mets hire a president of baseball operations, can heavily dictate what kind of guy is GM, if at all. Like, they might make a hire that goes balls to the wall and doesn't just be president of baseball operations, but also does in fact be GM. Theo Epstein is a guy that I feel like would want a GM under him, but would also want full control. Billy Beane has been working with a great GM for the A's for numerous years now, so I don't see Beane coming in and being a GM. While even though it might be enticing for him, I think Beane would still want to make a GM hire. David Stearns is a scenario where he's young. He can handle both positions, but is that something he wants to do? I don't necessarily know. Dayton Moore, John Daniels, or Jim Bowden for GM. Okay, Mike. Yep, seeing some names thrown out there now. I'll be okay with Lunau, or is it Luno? How do you pronounce it? Jeff Lunau. Let's look him up, guys. Give me 1 second. Like I said, I don't have a great background on some of these guys, so I'm always down to look them up kind of live as we're doing right now. Oh, he's former GM and president of baseball ops for the Astros. Interesting. Oh. That's a dicey one. Okay. That's a really dicey one. Because do the Mets want to deal with that PR? That's a big one. I will say, however, everyone else has dealt with it. Everyone has paid their dues in regarding the Astros cheating scandal, and it's over and done with. Should Jeff Lunau be given that same opportunity? Because he does have a great resume. Look, he's 44. He's 54 years old. He literally built the Astros into that Wayne championship caliber team, but part of the scandal. So that's tough. That's tough. It's enticing, but I have my concerns on, like, do the Mets need that guy in a bad PR? I don't know. I really don't know. Great mind, but it might be one of those things where you just have to turn away to. Kish with the $5 donation. Thank you so much for that, buddy. Sad to see Rojas gone. He's a scapegoat. True villain of the season is a strength and conditioning staff that couldn't keep people healthy. Kish, thank you so much for the $5. And while I definitely don't stand by the notion that everything was Rojas's fault this year, I think there were definitely issues with guys staying healthy for sure. There was a lot more to that, and Rojas's time as manager just needed to be over with. They need to allow their new front office hires to make the decisions as to who's going to be next manager. I think that's proper. But I appreciate the donation, no less, Kish. You make a good point. Thank you so much for that. Hype in the chat for Kish with a donation. We may not want to wait for Stearns. Oh, no, we won't. If the Mets can't hire Stearns this offseason, they're not going to hire him anytime soon. They need to make a president of baseball operations hire this offseason. They can't wait any longer. Hey, Tower, I heard a report that Derek Jeter expects a rebuild for the Marlins. Do you think the Mets need to be careful in 2022 and get a new manager in time for the season? Well, of course they need to be careful, but yes, they're going to get a new manager. Rojas was relieved of his duties today. Yes, the Mets are going to do president baseball operations at a GM, a manager, and roster configuration all in one offseason this year. A lot is going to happen. Yeah, Gerald, I've talked to you about Epstein, and I respectfully disagree with your stance on that. But I can tell that you're gonna stand firm on that regardless, and that's okay. That's definitely okay. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. That's why I love these streams. I love having these discussions for sure. But GM wise, again, I don't. It's very tough. I wish that we had more of an understanding as potential GM fits, but I genuinely don't think we do until that president baseball operations come in. So I'm really not going to expand on it much more than that. I think it might be a name too that no one was kind of expecting. I think the only real big name we may see hire wise is through president baseball operations. Everything else, while they might be big names and great resumes, they might not just be as renowned across the baseball world for like fans like us. So I don't know, but I GM very up in the air. So I think now is a great pivot to the managerial situation. And that's something that we beat a dead horse on in the Louis Rojas stream. So if you haven't checked that out, please make sure you do already. My goal is to not necessarily talk so much about the Louis Rojas situation and potential fit rather than just making the statement. Heim Bloom, no. The Mets had their chance with Heim and they blew it. And that's why he's with the Red Sox. I think it's perfect now for the Mets with a new manager. That something that I was talking about in the Rojas stream, they absolutely should not do anything, and I mean anything, until they have the proper hires in place. Sandy Alderson is not in a position, nor should be given the trust to even consider who you're going to have in as your next manager. I think I'm so against it on so many levels. I'm not in favor for it whatsoever, folks. I'm not sure what your stance is, but that's mine personally. I don't think that's the route they should be going down. We're right around 30 likes away from 100. Thank you so much for that, guys. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe on. It means a lot. We talked about a lot of different options here, and someone that I think we're going to be talking about in a potential separate video tomorrow is a man that is getting a lot of really positivity, negativity, assumption. And even Jose Reyes, former New York Met, tweeted this out earlier today, basically saying, I think it's going to happen. And that is Carlos Beltran. In my mind, there's no one more of a curious wild card than Carlos Beltran. And again, we talked about in the Rojas live stream. So if you want really in-depth on the whole managerial decision, the Rojas stream's for you. This is more from a broader sense because we're going over everything for what's next this offseason. But Carlos Beltran's so interesting to me because I know Steve Cohen liked him and was in favor of him when he was originally supposed to be in place before the Astros situation happened. For me personally, Beltran, if he at least had bench experience the way that Alex Cora did with the Astros, I feel I would be in so much more favor for it. But because he hasn't, I have this certain, reluctance. There's a wall in front of me that doesn't feel great, doesn't feel confident about it in regards to what Beltran could bring, because there's just all that uncertainty. You need someone that actually knows how to manage a baseball game. And while I'm not denying whatsoever that Beltran can't, I'm sure he will be a great manager one day potentially. I'm not sold on the notion that the time is now. So if that does happen, or maybe as some people are alluding in the chat right now, hitting coach, like maybe he'll start off like that. That's not something I'm against. I think that's actually a great idea. Maybe Beltran will be a situation where you start him out on the bench as a hitting coach, something along those lines, and then he eventually works himself in as the new manager, and you have a more of a veteran presence as the current manager. I'm not against that. Like Bob Melvin and Beltran, oh my goodness, I would cry with tears of joy. That would be the hires that I think the Mets could possibly do this offseason. From talking about killing two birds with one stone, you got Bob Melvin, the stud from the A's that we've talked about plenty in the live stream earlier today for Rojas, but also in a separate video about Billy Beane and Bob Melvin potentially coming to the Mets. Melvin has a great resume. Would love that. Obstacles to get over in order to acquire him via trade. But land him, Billy Beane would assumably be your president baseball ops then. Get Carlos Beltran as your bench hitting coach. I mean, I feel like I'm barking up the wrong tree because it just feels unrealistic with how, anytime I feel like I'm really enticed by something, it's not going to happen. Eduardo Perez, I'm not in favor for personally. I don't think he'd be a terrible hire, but I would by no means would I want him as a manager for the Mets. I think Perez off the bench could be suitable, but not as manager. I was not in favor of him when he was one of the final candidates for the managerial position a couple of years ago, and Beltran still beat him, as we know. Future Mets manager manager should most probably be Billy Beane. Billy Beane would have the most balance and staying within budget, valuing farm system, and knows the value of the current MLB players. I don't necessarily disagree with you, John. I do agree, however, that all options are great. I'm not against any of them, and that's a great feeling, in my opinion. Can I explain how train for manager works? Sure, Thomas, and I appreciate the donation. So hype in the chat for a donation, guys, really means a lot. Thank you so much, Thomas. So from my understanding, from what I've broken down from that Ken Rosenthal article, is that a trade for a manager like a Billy Beane in a Bob Melvin situation is about compensation. So Billy Beane would have to divest his 4% ownership that he has in the A's organization, one. And two, there wouldn't be any physical assets that would be dealt in a scenario for Melvin and Beane, but it would be finances. So the Mets would have to reach a compensation for the liking of the A's, and it would be a lot of money because you have to make sure that you can entice Beane and Melvin, first of all, but also entice the owner of the A's and potentially give him compensation, which what Ken Rosenthal alluded to, potentially helping with a new stadium when it comes to, putting a couple seats in the new stadium, something along those lines. And Steve Cohen can most definitely afford that. In a nutshell, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. It would be a lot of money. There's no other way around it. It would be a shit ton of money. That's the compensation that out of pocket that Steve Cohen would actually have to be paying for. So no physical assets, but financially a lot of money. That's in a nutshell how the trade-off works. Yeah, Gerald, I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree with that at all in regards to the prospects. Assets or would not be a part of this deal, like physical ones. Mark DeRosa doesn't have any management experience. Yeah, I love DeRosa on MLB Network. I say he stays there. $2 donation from Dave. Thank you so much for that, buddy. Mets better make the right moves this offseason. I'm confident they will, Dave, and I can't wait to talk to you and everyone else about it on the channel when it happens. Thank you so much for the donation, buddy. Let's get some hype in the chat. Feel like a consistent CP is something we desperately need. Drew, CP, why am I blanking? A closing pitcher? Is that what you're referring to? Drew, I don't know. I don't know why I'm not understanding what CP is standing for. If Carlos Beltran comes back to the Mets, Beltran would probably excel as a hitting coach better than a manager. I wouldn't necessarily say better than a manager, but I think it would make sense to have him start off as a hitting coach before taking that leap to management. Max says, well, look at the Mets front office is mainly statistics based, so that's an easy factor on why Rojas was chosen and maybe our next manager. Okay? And I like your channel pick, Brandon. If that is that Chris Bryant in a Mets uniform, I think it is. That's funny. Jose, yeah, there isn't a shot in hell if Billy Bean became president that he would trade Jacob deGrom and do stuff like that. Again, I think you're really thinking in the wrong direction if you believe that Billy Bean is going to act small market as a big market club for the Mets. No, that wouldn't happen. Best manager available for the Mets right now. If you're asking for my opinion, I don't know what his availability is, but what I would prefer is Bob Melvin from the A's. I like that pick more than anything, honestly. I really do. Castellanos, we're going to be talking about Castellanos actually a good amount on the channel. Hint, hint at a future video. Hint, hint at a collab potentially. So we talked about him on the channel already, though, as a potential free agent target of way too early Mets offseason targets. So definitely check that out. But yes, Castellanos, I'm not against. But all these upper management hires and managerial hires need to happen in order for the Mets to make the proper moves. They like we're going to be making plenty of content regarding players, guys, but the Mets we can only go so far with these discussions until they get these hires in. It's really, it's hard to go too far into them when we don't even know who's going to run it. Like, we don't know who's going to make these decisions yet. And that's important to me. Joe DeMeo, what did my buddy Joe tweet? We'll check out what Joe tweeted. Give me a second. Yeah, okay. I mean, look, this is Joe. If you guys don't know, he's been on the channel before. He'll be on the channel again this offseason. Best prospect coverage you can get through SNY. And Gabe with the $10 donation, Jose Reyes, manager, or Beltran. Gabe, thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate that. Hype in the chat for Gabe. Or manager. I mean, manager or Beltran. Reyes would never be manager. I promise you that. But he actually did advocate for Beltran to be today. He tweeted that out. But I wanted to go to Joe DeMeo's tweet here because we love Joe, and we're going to pivot to him real quick. I don't think he's watching right now because he's got better things to do. But we're gonna pivot to Joe DeMeo's tweet real quick because it's true. Alluding to what I was just saying, my observation from the Billy Bean comments, he didn't say no. That's a pretty easy word to say. This is from Joe DeMeo. And of course, he's just stirring the pot more for us Mets fans. Yeah. No, I agree. The fact that he didn't say no is what's most enticing to me. It really is. Like, there's no reason why if he would have said no, it would have shut this all down. As I said already, and I will say it again, folks, this is just the beginning between Billy Bean and the New York Mets. I feel confident that regardless if they end up landing him or not, this is a story that has yet to reach its ending. It's only just begun. And of course, so guys, if you're enjoying the live stream, please make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Again, if you're enjoying consistent Mets content like this, we got so much going on in the offseason. You have no idea, between endless live streams like this, individual video content, breaking down everything there is to know about the Mets and their offseason moves. We have more content coming out tomorrow and the next day, all that fun stuff. So smash that button, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, all that fun stuff. We're trying to get to 10K, folks. That's the next ultimate goal on the channel. And again, thank you so much for the continued support. Just know that, this is truly only the beginning of off-season content. We're day one. We're day one into this thing. When are we putting odds on when they have player? I think the Mets will have a higher. All right, guys, here we go. Drum roll, please. I think the Mets will have a higher President Baseball Operations in by the weekend before Halloween. That is I'm locking it in. I think the Mets will have a new president of baseball ops by the weekend of Halloween. No, the weekend before, pardon me. So like the 23rd, 24th. That's my prediction. I think the Mets are going to get it done quickly. I do not think it's going to drag out nearly as long as some of you guys think. Remember, Brody Van Wagenen got hired by the New York Mets in the final week of October a couple years ago. I think this will happen even sooner than that, as long as they get the proper interviews in. I do not think the Mets have this illustrious list of, 10, 20 different names. No, I think their list is really at most 5, and 3 of the 5 include David Stearns, Billy Beane, and Theo Epstein from all what the reports have indicated. So yeah, I think it's going to happen fairly soon. But I will say that I don't want you to take my word for it. Don't get your hopes up is my point. By no means do I have any inside information. You ask for my opinion, I'm sharing it with you. It's as simple as that. So just don't take it to heart is my point. We'll just see if it plays out is what I'm trying to allude at here. Gabe with a $2 donation. Right or Piazza, Gabe, I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for the donations. But again, you're wrong, buddy. Neither of those guys are going to be managed for the Mets anytime soon. That's not the route the Mets will be going down, nor should they. Thomas, you don't have inside info. Shut up. Because if you did, you would DM me. And if you say, "Oh, I can't tell you," then you're just a hater. So, are the Mets expected to get 2 high-level draft picks this year? Yes, they are. But something tells me the Mets are going to part ways with one of those 2 high-level draft picks because they're going to give it up while signing a free agent that denied their qualifying offer from their respective club. So that's what I think is going to happen. Wally Bachman, I don't think is going to happen. Did I tell you the Mets? No, Thomas, you did. But my point is, if you have inside info, you should be DMing me. I'm not denying you. My point is, you should be telling me and not throwing it out there because you know that's going to make me upset. He experienced and knows how run a team. He led the Rangers to back AL titles and nearly won the 2011 World Series. Great option. Look at the manager position. We talked about him already. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we talked about him already in the Rojas live stream. Bobby Valentine's more concerned about his politics than he is coming back into the MLB. I wouldn't worry about that. All right, folks. So we're right around the hour mark in the stream, and we got another donation. Could possibly be an important day. Okay. All right. So I'll say the date is what you're saying. Hire Ted Lasso because the circus needs a clown to be in the. I have yet to watch Ted Lasso. I was literally saying that with my buddy Steven today for my Rangers podcast co-host. I was saying I need to watch Ted Lasso. It looks like it's really good. I'm planning on it. Thank you for the $5 donation. So I'm sorry I don't understand that reference enough. I'm sure people in the chat do. I plan on watching it. I might start tonight after I watch Moneyball for no apparent reason. So Thomas thinks November 15th could be possibly an important day. Thomas, I'm going to write it down on my calendar. I'm going to be genuinely upset when nothing happens on November 15th. But mid-November is a prime time for things to happen. So I don't think you're wrong. I do think that could be an important day, which by, just over a month away. Wardy for manager. So this guy gets it. My man. Thank you for that. Wait, what? Like Psyduck as your photo? That's funny. Hank with the $10 donation. Sorry, just logged in. Did you talk about Beltran yet? Hank, I did, but I'll reiterate quick for you because you're so kind to give me the $10 donations. Thank you so much for that by hype in the chat for our buddy Hank with the $10 dono. What a beauty. 10 likes away from 100, guys. Continue smashing those buns. Thank you again. And a nutshell about Carlos Beltran. It almost feels like he would be better to start out potentially as a hitting coach versus coming in as manager again. Mainly given the lack of experience he has managing. I think it would make perfect sense to have a veteran in there that isn't going to have, a long shelf life. Have him in there and then kind of, lead the way for Beltran to be that next man up once the time's right, once he's ready to go, once it's the passing of the torch, if you will, from one manager to the next. That is what I'm not against. And I think that may be a little bit more realistic, but again, who knows? We'll see. David Cohn, I don't see David Cohn happening. Yeah, CBA. Glad you brought up CBA. That's a big discussion piece as well. A lot is going to happen with the CBA and its potential impact on the Mets. The universal DH is a huge part of it for sure. Universal DH will change so much for the Mets with the assumption they get it. And that's why in the collaboration of a video you'll be seeing soon, we incorporated the assumed DH and picking our kind of, potential fits for the Mets in their roster. So keep an eye out. That'll be out probably at some point this week. I'm excited to get that out there for you guys. But yeah, CBA is going to be a big one, big one for sure. I just pray that there won't be a lockout because I don't want that. I don't think anyone does. If the Mets don't win the NL pennant next year, I will burn all my vintage Mets baseball cards from 70s, 80s, and 90s. I'll do it. Steven, you know what you could do instead of burning them? You could just send them my PO box. To be honest with you, I think that'd be the better route. Here, I love Terry Francona. I do. I don't think he's realistic, however, because I don't see him leaving Cleveland. The guy literally left this year because of health reasons. Why should I think that Terry Francona, one of the best managers in the game, is going to leave Cleveland now? There's uncertainties with his health. I don't think that'll happen. I love the idea. Great manager, just an amazing human being, but I don't see it happening. Mookie Wilson, no. Just because it's a Mets legend does not mean that they automatically get the opportunity as a manager for the Mets. I think we need to stop with that narrative, please. Would I trade McNeil for Hader if you sign Correa or Baez? Personally, yes, I would consider that, but I know the Brewers won't even pick up the phone. Any updates on Billy Beane? Yes, we were just talking about it. Billy Beane made remarks today, basically acknowledging the reports between connecting him and the Mets and not denying them. He was asked if the Mets have reached out to him, and he didn't deny it. He just is trying not to shed too much light on it. But from his wording, it comes off fairly suspect. It's almost like Billy Beane knows that there's a door open right now there. I'd love to see Wardy as manager and argue with the umpires on balls and strikes. That makes the both of us, Dave. You know how quick I would be out there to kick dirt on home plate and throw my hat down? It would be electric. I would go down to first base and take the first base too. Christopher with the $2 donation. Thank you so much for the $2 donation, Chris. Hype in the chat for Christopher with the $2 donation. You guys are really taking a liking to the offseason coverage, and I love that. Thank you so much again for the support, guys. It means a lot. Appreciate that, Christopher. How frequently am I going to stream in the offseason? At least once a week. And there's definitely going to be weeks where I'm streaming 2, 3, 4 times a week. It's all going to go directly in hand with the status of the team. But the minimum will be 1 live stream per week. Probably pushing 2 once the hot stove starts to pick up. Potentially going to 3. Again, off season gets pretty hectic. I can just promise you that there's going to be endless content. Endless content. What happened? Well, the Mets didn't make playoffs this year. If they don't make playoffs next year, though, no, I'm not worrying about that. I'm not worrying about that right now. The least intimidating person in the world, man, would have to be standing on a stool to bench the ump's eyes. Thomas, that would make the 2 of us then. Now, wouldn't it, Thomas? You know, Thomas, I can stand on your shoulders. That way we can get something going. Why not Wally Bachman? I never said why not Wally Bachman. I just don't think he's of consideration. That's what I think. How's it going, bro? Are you going to opening day next year? More than likely, yeah. I'm sure I will be. Excellent. Looking forward to it. I go through withdrawals for Matt. Yeah, me too, Chris. Me too, for sure. Think when it's all said and done, there will be a DH next year? Yes, I'm confident in that. Thomas, we're both short canes. Let's be real here. Oh, I was gone, by the way, because I have deal with purchasing a car. Good luck with that. What kind of car are you looking at? We're here for off-season streams as much as I can, though. I appreciate that, buddy. Thank you. I should vlog it? Vlog what? If I go to opening day? Oh, absolutely. If I go to opening day next year, I'll vlog it for sure. With that being said, though, folks, I'm trying not to get too much off topic. I want to center back now to something that I think will take us, at least the next half hour, maybe more, maybe less. That is off-season moves, roster moves. Okay, so as I alluded to already, I'm breaking down a lot of roster moves heading into another video and other videos on the channel very soon. But I really want to interact with you guys in the chat and what your stance is on the current roster. Maybe some players you're interested in, and I will then counter and tell you what my stance is at this point in time, how realistic it is, how isn't. And, other than that, there really isn't any other reports that have come out there. Marte, yeah, yeah, yeah. I like Marte a lot. I like Sterling Marte quite a bit. I may or may not have talked about him in a video. That's already pre-recorded. Yes, I like Sterling Marte. I do, and I think what would be awesome is that in the scenario where the Mets get a Billy Bean and or Bob Melvin, then that could potentially help you with a guy like Sterling Marte, knowing that he already has a connection with the A's, knowing how well he did in the A's after the trade deadline, and knowing that you have two guys that were huge parts of the A's that he could be within the Mets. So yeah, I'm not against that whatsoever. I don't think Baez is coming back personally. Yeah, Baez is a big question mark to people. I'm under the notion that Baez will stay, but I'm also under the notion that Baez is more likely to stay when the front office hires make these decisions than Sandy Alderson. I don't trust Sandy making that decision nearly as much as I do someone else, from what his body language has shown, at least. Are the Giants going to re-sign Chris Bryant? I don't know. I really don't know. I think that there's potential there for him to resign, but in a scenario where he doesn't, then yeah, I think that he can be an option for sure. We've already talked about him in our five way too early Mets offseason targets for agency wise. What arms I like? There's a lot. I like Kevin Gausman personally. I also like John Gray. There really isn't too much from the free agent market. Zach Greinke is enticing as well. You can get him on the low, like a short-term deal, but high AAV. Those are guys for agency I'm looking at. Thomas says lineup next year: Nimmo, Lindor, Alonso, Baez, Marte, Pham, Chapman. Ooh. Thomas, I think you're really going to like a video that's coming out this week. Nino, pitcher. If no pitcher, and DH, then Vientos. Ooh. Thomas hitting. Good stuff, Thomas. I like that. Should we stay away from signing someone that declines qualifying offer? Yes, all depending on who it is, in my opinion. All depending on who it is. I think you should not stay away from a Carlos Correa. I think if you have the option, you go for him. And you go all in for Carlos Correa as a franchise-altering talent. I think someone like a Carlos Rodon, however, then yeah, I think that there's an argument to be had to not give up that pick for Rodon. Would Greinke want to pitch in NY? I mean, he's pitched in LA, so I don't know. I really don't know. If money talks, from money talks, Greinke's the most interesting thing in the world. But you have to realize that if those things are happening, that's a guarantee that Marcus Stroman is not coming back. So you're talking about Marcus Stroman replacements, and Marcus needs to be a priority, in my opinion. And that's someone I'm going to be talking about in a separate video on the channel. Correa third and Baez at second. I like the way you think. Do I really think that we can afford Correa, Lindor, Baez? Yes. It is very expensive for sure. That is Padres infield expensive, no doubt. But can they actually afford it? Yes, they can. It's just a matter of will they do it. Nimor, Pilar, left field, Marte, center field, Castellanos, right field. Ricky, there you go. A lot of you guys are really spoiling something on the channel soon. That's all I have to say. I feel like it's because of me. Because I'm the one who's already talked about these players in the free agency video. I don't think Mets should listen to Sandy about the Javi Baez thing. Yes, I agree, Brandon. I don't think you should put stock into his comments on Baez though either. He shouldn't be making that decision, so I wouldn't worry about it. JD Davis, yeah, JD Davis looks like he's gone. We might talk about that in a separate video as well. I think we will fairly soon. Nothing that we have to crazy rush, but yeah, I think JD's a goner. I do. I think he understands that, rightfully so, which is unfortunate for him. But again, we'll get into that more like on an individual level in a separate video. Think Gigi should be the bench coach? I like the way you think too, David. Secret info? Secret info. What are you talking about, Christopher? I don't got any more information than the next guy. Sign Raisel Iglesias for closer. I'm not against Raisel Iglesias as well. My goodness gracious. It's so funny how accurate you guys are with some of these things. 4 likes away from 100 in the chat, guys. Smash that like and subscribe on. Help us get to 150 likes for the next short-term goal if you guys would be too kind. Thank you so much for the support. Again, guys, if you're just chiming in to this point, if you're watching live and not on replay, then you know that we are doing a complete step-by-step breakdown on the New York Mets offseason. What is next? What is their approach, right? That's where we're getting into. We went through steps 1 through 3. Now we're stuck on 1 through 4. We are stuck on 4. Yeah, we, again, a lot of breakdown. I'm excited, though. I love these kind of conversations, and it really, I thoroughly enjoy these conversations. So, again, just thank you all so much for being here. Jose Ramirez, like the way you think as well. You SOBs, I shouldn't have even asked you about roster moves. Killing my mojo. Where I think Dom ends. I think Dom gets traded. If you're asking for my initial reaction, feeling, we got to take off the jacket for a little bit too. It's a sauna in here. And, last off season, we were just getting started with the channel. So I felt like it was a priority to keep this jacket on 24/7. No, we've grown since then. I'm a grown man. I can handle to have it off for a little bit. So it's a sauna here. Just give me like 20 minutes without it or something. I don't know. Just need a break from the jacket. And I didn't even have the Mets chain on. What am I doing? What happens with Cano, Dom Smith, who's the DH? I think Cano is far more likely to be a DH than Dom Smith is, meaning that Dom Smith wouldn't have a role on the team. Yeah, no. Pardon me. Jose Ramirez will be expensive for sure. Our infield should be Dom Smith, Cano, Guillorme, JD. I expect nothing less from you. SMI reports that they will not create an amazing finishes for 2021 based on lack of quality content. Did they say that, Mike, or are you just bluffing? Hear me out for a lineup. Nimmo, Buxton, Lindor, Alonso, Baez, Chapman, Vientos, Pham, Nito. I like it. Simeon is not happening. I think Marcus either stays in Toronto or he goes back out west. Buxton, definitely not against Buxton at all. All right. You know what? We're gonna have to turn that up, if you know what I mean, guys. All right, folks. For people that aren't aware of my infatuation with Byron Buxton, I'm gonna put you on real quick. All right, folks, look at this. Bingo. 8 months ago, 5.5K views. Byron Buxton is exactly what the New York Mets need at Citi Field. 1,000%. We are huge Byron Buxton stands here on the channel, and we will be. And that's not stopping anytime soon. Yes, I know he gets injured. I'm well aware. But, if he's available, I'm in on him. The Mets were interested for him at the trade deadline, which made me beyond excited when that time happened, even though I just got my hopes up because it never happened in the end. Alonso, Baez, Lindor, Chapman, Dom, Nimmo, and Buxton. I don't see Dom in the Mets starting lineup next season. Trout coming to NY? Yeah, maybe when he's 40. My body pillow with his face on? No, Jesus, Thomas. Going a little too far. Got to head out. Chris, have a great day, my man. Thank you so much for being here. Off Jam indeed. Most crazy idea. Trade for J-Ram and Bieber. Yeah, that's crazy because you're going to... the Mets don't have a farm to make that deal happen. J-Ram as itself is a stretch. To throw in Bieber, no shot. Marte is better than Buxton. Not overall and with potential. I wouldn't necessarily say that. I think potential is definitely in Buxton's favor for sure. Buxton just has to stay healthy, though. That's been his biggest kryptonite. I think how you go about offseason moves with guys like Beatty and Vientos is you operate with the belief that you're going to have continued success. You know, the Mets, and I've argued this a lot with people, and while it's important to keep in mind in the future for the Mets for sure on what they should and shouldn't do, you also have to be aware that the Mets are in a spot where they need to really change a lot with their roster right now and get to where they want to be, which should be a contender. It should be a team that's winning the division next year and having a deep run in playoffs and beyond. I do not want the Mets to acquire players to be placeholders for their assumed prospects that haven't proven themselves, and you're betting on so much. I'd rather the Mets have an embarrassment of riches where you have a good problem to have, or say you do lock down as someone at third base, but then once Beatty, for instance, is ready, you figure out what you do with him. Maybe you move Beatty in the corner outfield if there isn't a guy long-term in the left field. Maybe you move him to DH. Vientos is a guy that could very much slide in the DH. So, again, I understand why you need to be wary of it, but I also don't think the Mets should operate as if they're betting on everything with these prospects. If they do, then they're going to fall short again next year. Raul Strogo, I think he has a strong shot to go back to the Mets like anything else, but he's going to go the highest paid bidder. And, you know, he's going to have a lot of teams going after him in free agency. So I really hope the Mets can lock him up, but we'll see. We'll see. Anything's possible. And yes, Marte is 32. He's 5 years older than Buxton. To show you the difference, if you will. Our rotation next year, DeGrom, Gosman, Walker, Greinke, Thor. I don't see that happening, but that's not nearly as outlandish as it could be. No. Vientos could be DH, I agree, but Beatty is not coming to the bigs next year. No. Beatty is still over a year away. I do not see Beatty hitting the bigs next year. I think with trades and keeping some major prospects like Vientos, you can still make a winning team. Like I said with my lap, I'd be willing to trade Beatty for Buxton. Oh, no, Thomas, I agree with you. I think you misunderstood me. I agree with you. I'm not against that. Mets insist on signing Baez or Correa or both, then we would have to go all out for Ketel Marte and not take no for answer. McNeil, Beatty, Vientos, Gerald, I love Ketel Marte, but what's your infatuation with him? Why do you want him so bad? Because we've been referring more so to Starling Marte in center than Ketel. Theo or Bean, I would love either one. I really would. I would love either one, but gut feeling wants Bean first before Theo. As crazy as that is to say. And I love both. I really do. I would trust me. I'm not upset whatsoever the Mets land either of them. But personally, just a personal feeling, I want Billy Bean. And that's not including David Stearns that we've been talking about as well. And that's a fair argument, Matthew. I know people have been bringing that up about how the teams have looked after Theo's left. That's fair, Yoshima. But again, you would be focusing on the short term for a guy like Starling Marte. Is Mauricio trade bait? I think he is, personally. I do think he is along the lines of trade bait. I think he's one of those prospects that the Mets would like to keep, but if the opportunity presents itself to part ways with him for a bigger deal, I don't think they will deny it as long as it's at the right price. Well, let me hold on, folks. Let me go on Fangraphs. I want to check Ketel Marte's numbers here. Something I haven't looked at Ketel's numbers in a couple months, actually. Ooh, baby. 139 WRC plus. Yes. 318 average. 14 bombs in 90 games this year because he dealt with injury. Wow. Marte and 2020, because he only played 45 games, had a 94 WRC plus, a down year in that regard for sure. Average was still good though. But in 2019, had a 149 WRC plus. My goodness gracious. Wowza. Yeah, he's really good. Oh, I forgot how young Ketel is too. Holy smokes. Wow. Those are some nice numbers. They don't want to trade Mauricio, but he doesn't have a spot here with Lindor here. Unless they move him to a different position or DH. I agree. Blue Jays aren't trading Barrios, yeah. And I don't know what the Barrios talk is happening, guys. Like, I've been seeing people talking about Barrios as a free agent. He has another year of arbitration this year, folks. I don't know who's throwing that out there to make you think otherwise, but Barrios is not going anywhere. Did any player overachieve this year for the Mets? Yes. Aaron Loop did. Aaron Loop was the best reliever in all the NL this year. Yeah, the 0.95 ERA. Best in baseball of a reliever. Amazing. I respectfully disagree, Gerald. Nimmo has drastically improved his game in center this year. My big critique with Nimmo in center isn't his range, it's his arm. Nimmo doesn't have a strong arm. That's the only critique I really have for him in center. He has good range. He proved that this year. But I don't think that his range is something that has been an issue nearly as much as his actual arm has been. Getting the ball into the cutoff man and things of that nature. Or even trying to get a guy out at home from shallow center. John Gibbons, we talked about John Gibbons. He's potential, but it doesn't feel likely. Yeah, we talked about Gibbons in our last live stream earlier today when Lou Rojas was freshly relieved of duties as manager for the Mets. Pilar, no. Pilar has a player option on his contract, so I don't think he's going anywhere. Let's see here. Nimmo, Lindor, Marte, Ramirez, Castellanos, Alonso, Baez, McCann, or Nito. Ooh, nice. No, I wasn't frozen. I was just reading something quick, guys. I would love Freddie Freeman too, but it's not happening. I love Freddie Freeman as much as the next guy, but I don't see that happening. Unfortunately, I unfortunately don't. That's all I gotta say. I wish that wasn't the case, but it is. And just so you know, folks, we're gonna be going probably for another 10 minutes. We're gonna be going to the hour 30 mark here in the stream or so. So keep that in mind for these discussions. Again, thank you all so much for being here. Continue to smash that like and subscribe button if you're enjoying the live stream. Help us get to 150 likes by the end of the live stream. That always means a lot, guys. We inspired so many this year. Oh, Vintage Mets. Oh, what's up, my man? I know we talked not too long ago. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, guys, please make sure to actually check out my man on Instagram. As long as it's back up and running, because I know Instagram was like bugging out earlier today. But yes, fantastic stuff this guy does. He has an amazing Mets collection of like vintage Mets gear between hats, shirts, jackets, you name it, he has it. Been a great support. Thank you so much, my man. That means a lot. Appreciate you being here, buddy. Thank you so much for that. Did I tell you I ran into Nemo last Wednesday? Yes, Thomas, you did, and you told me about his Ultima. Yes, I'm aware. Let's see. It looks like Conforto the other night in Kyle City. Yeah, Conforto. Look, I was at the Mets. If you guys don't know, I was at the Mets' final home game of the season with the 7 line. I really hope that wasn't Michael Conforto's last game. But we did talk about Michael on the channel again in a separate video on if the Mets should re-sign him. Everything you need to know about that rather uncertain situation. Probably the biggest uncertainty for the Mets heading into the offseason for sure. Please make sure to check that video out if you haven't already, guys. Same things we have. Noah Syndergaard video on his future. We have the Javi Baez video that's done really well. We have the 5 way too early Mets free agent targets video. We're going to have a 5 way too early Mets trade targets video out within the next week as well, along with a huge, almost hour-long collab talking about the Mets roster configuration further on a lot of players that you guys mentioned in the stream today. So keep that in mind for sure. But no less, a lot, and I mean a lot of great content coming out. Asia, I know we tried it earlier this year. It just didn't happen. I'm sorry. I tried literally numerous times to make that happen. It didn't. We'll have to try again another time. I agree with you, Gerald, on that one about McNeil. Verlander, oof. I think Verlander's going back to Detroit to finish his career with AJ Hinch. That's what I think is happening for Verlander. And I think if there's a fit that might be most ideal for Carlos Correa, it will be Detroit, as heartbreaking as that is for me to say. I think if Correa assumably doesn't go to the Mets, I think Detroit makes most sense to reunite with AJ Hinch, to be with a team on the rise, and they are in need of a franchise shortstop. So, you know, he checks off all the boxes. We'll see what happens, but yeah, Detroit, I think, is going to be very sneaky and making good moves this year. They had a good season. They're a great young team on the come up. Don't be surprised. Be ready. Detroit Tigers, they're quickly becoming a very good team. Mike, I'm glad you found it too, my man. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate the support. What contract would I for Baez? I would love for Baez to go to a 5-year deal at 140, 145. I would be in favor of the Mets really offering him in anything, but I think a 4 or 5-year deal would be awesome. But I don't see Baez taking anything less than 6 years. Jack, I know, was a rough end indeed, but again, still just the beginning and so much content to come in the offseason, what is going to be a crazy offseason. So again, appreciate your support, Jack. Thank you, buddy. Trade Dom, he's a first baseman at heart. Trade JD, even he seemingly knows it will happen. Keep Jeff, he's the best out of those 3. I think the biggest thing for Jeff with the assumption the Mets keep him is where do you put him? That's really the big thing. It's not so much about worrying about McNeil and what his future. I think McNeil's gonna be a great player again. There's no doubt in my mind. He is a great player. He just had a down year. I think a healthy McNeil next year should get back to his 300 plus average self. And the Mets need those kind of guys in the lineup. They don't have nearly enough of them. Davis, Dom, and Palmer for to the A's for Matt Chapman. You have my intrigue. Smith and JD do have value to something crazy. I think that those guys could be part of a package of something bigger. I agree with that. I am investing a lot of money in Baez and Lindor, and I'm not looking back, to be quite honest with you. I don't have an issue with it. Me too. I'm very much looking forward to it, Wonder Davey. That's why I thought it was important for us to start breaking down and all that fun stuff. But again, folks, if you have been enjoying the live stream and if you're excited for more content like this on off-season breakdown and off-season outlook video that will be coming soon, a big collab on the channel, a lot of individual content, a lot more live streams. Like I always say, anything, everything there is to know about the New York Mets and their future, folks. That is what we will be covering this offseason. A lot of features, collabs with other YouTubers, other big names in the Mets community. So much is happening. We're also starting to grow the channel as well. Merchandise will get out there. I promise you. I'm so sorry for the complete delay. I know I'm a schmuck for that, but it'll all get out there. In a nutshell, a lot of things are coming. I'm beyond excited for it. And it really started with today. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the content for sure. We are going to be wrapping up the stream, however, guys. So feel free to get your final thoughts in, and then we're going to go from there. Again, thank you so much for the continued support. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button. Again, you guys are the best. You make this all worthwhile every single day. There's nothing that I enjoy more than doing this. I agree with Thomas there. Do you think Walker is tradable? Yes, but he's not getting traded. The Mets are not going to give up on him that soon. Have a good night, Christopher. And thank you so much again for the kind words, Vintage Mets. I appreciate you, bro. For the streams and videos, yeah, me too. I'm not even joking. I'm very much looking forward to them. I have a lot of fun making them. Without a healthy DeGrom, the Mets will have issues next year. Agreed, Robert. That's why they're going to have a healthy DeGrom. Sign Simeon, not happening. Simeon literally said he views himself as a shortstop, not a second baseman. So you can scratch that. Look at Thomas has caught me with a Byron Buxton pillow and dancing in my room. Okay, Thomas knows best apparently. That's funny. Have a good one, Thomas. Keep up the good work and hope one day you're on SNY. Oh, thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. That's very kind. Bring back Rich Hill. Dick Mound might be coming back. It seems like he has a willingness to come back. We'll see if that holds true. But I'm not against Hill coming back at all. I'm really not. But with that being said, folks, we're past the 130 mark. That is going to do it. I look like Mixapar and Conforto. I get that a lot, and I don't mind that. Again, final thoughts is Puerto Rican trio Baez, Lindor, Correa. Thank you again, guys, for the continued support. Hope you guys enjoyed this live stream. Make sure to smash those buttons if you did. Whether you're watching this live right now, we're on replay. I'm sure plenty of you guys are watching this on replay too. Expect more great content like this all throughout the offseason. A lot more discussions. And again, you guys know the drill. Anything and everything Mets related, on a player they land, on a hire they make, on a fire they make. You guys know where to go. I don't need to tell you by now. It's here or nowhere. So thank you again, guys. Love you all. Have a great night. Expect more great content up tomorrow. Peace out, guys. Let's go Mets, baby.